ever since I started thinking about breeding fish and, axolotls specifically, I've looked into a lot of different methods that people have for breeding fry and, doing water change systems and, even beta racks and beta barracks and, everything. And I really wanted to do something super cool, but it really, when it came down to it, there was nothing that I felt would help me enough to justify the expense. So I'm mainly looking to save time with the daily upkeep of raising the baby axolotls and make it a little easier on myself. But I didn't want to go out and spend a ton of money buying PVC pipe and all these fittings and especially tools and that sort of stuff. So I'm going to show you today my very simple, very cheap DIY fry axolotl breeding boxes, water change system, whatever you want to call it. And everything that I used for this, I either had on hand or was super cheap, and most of it I think you'll have on hand too. So if you want to try it out, something that would be very easy to easy to try and see how you like it. So let me show you how I put this together, and we can kind of talk through all the moving parts, or not moving parts, but it's a fully gravity fed system, so there's very little that could go wrong with it as long as you remember to turn off the water valves. So let's take a closer look. As I said, the entire system's gravity fed, so we'll work from the top down. So the top here is nothing but a water reservoir, something for us to fill with water and to use for daily water change. We have airline tubing drilled through these with simple shut-off valves run through air hose or airline hosing. And simply, these aren't connected to anything. I put them in the tote when I want them to fill them up. Whenever I don't, I pull them out. And then these are the simple, you can call them breeder boxes, you can call them water change boxes, beta bags, whatever you want to call them. These are the simple boxes I put together. So they're very similar to this. You have airline tubing stuck through the plastic side. You have a valve to shut water off and on. And then I'm using a little piece of foam or sponge in there to just keep any of the fry from getting sucked up, because baby axolotls are really tiny at first. So that's on there just so that I don't have to worry about sucking any of them up whenever I do the water change. So I can turn the system on, wait for it to fully drain, and then come back later, turn all these individual valves off, and then turn the water coming from the tub on top on. And these are all simply just hooked to hoses that don't go anywhere. When I'm ready, I drop these into a bucket on the ground and let the water flow, and then I dump the bucket once it's done draining. So let's walk through how I built one of these boxes. Very simple piece components. I have 5 parts here. So let me show you how I make one. I need to make one more for this rack, so let me walk you through the steps. Alright, so everything we have that we're gonna need is in this box right here. So the first thing we have is a drill bit. You honestly could probably do this without even a drill, but we have the drill to make it handy, make it a little easier. I'm trying to find the size here. It says on here somewhere what size it is. Let's see. It is a 13/64. I'm not sure you can see that at all on here and on, but it's 13/64. There's probably multiple sizes that you can use. This is just what worked well for the airline tubing that I had, and I just bought a cheap thing of it on Amazon. It's just black airline tubing. So next thing we're gonna need is, of course, airline tubing. So this is just a 1.5 inch or so piece airline tubing. We have a valve that we're going to connect it to. That's what's going to be our on-off shut-off valve. I got, I think, a 12-pack of these on Amazon, and then I just cut a piece of foam from larger block of foam that I had that I'm using for a different project. And then in the end here, you may not be able to see it, I put a hole into the end of the foam so that the airline tubing can slide into it. It sits in there pretty tight, and then that way that it doesn't suck up any fry or babies or anything whenever you're doing your water change. And I made the hole, I just put the drill bit that I used for drilling the hole into the side of the bucket. I heated that up and just used it to basically burn a hole into the foam, and then that hole is the exact same size as the hole that's going to be in the bucket, so it fits the airline tubing perfectly and keeps it pretty secure so that you don't have to worry about it falling out during a water change. So the first step here is going to be drilling a hole. I did the holes pretty low on mine, so basically I want to get as much water change as I possibly can out of these with just turning the hose on. So I simply put the sponge to the bottom here and then kind of lined it up and just drilled a hole. Nothing fancy, nothing special to it, just clean up the hole a little bit. And then the next piece here, I'm going to just sit our airline tubing into our one-way valve. This is much easier to do before you put the airline tubing in the tub, but not impossible to do afterwards. It's just much easier. And then one thing that I didn't mention yet is that in order for this to fit into this hole, if you just take it the way it is not going to fit. It's obviously too big. You're going to have a really tough time getting it to line up correctly. So just take a pair of scissors and cut it slightly on a diagonal here. Just, you don't need much, just a little bit of a lip there. And then that will allow you to slide it into the hole that we just made. And have it come through on the other end a little bit so that you can grab it and pull it the rest of the way through. So it's simply what we do, pull it through. I snug it all the way up to where the valve is here, and you can rotate it, and this rubber will help seal that hole because of the flex of the rubber, since the hole is slightly smaller. And you can see it's pretty sturdy, pretty snug. You can actually hold the container up with it, so you don't really have to worry about it leaking unless you're doing something a little more involved. And then get that out of there. Find my foam. All right, now that I've found my piece of foam here, take your foam. You're going to take that where that hole is that you've already drilled, and like I said, I simply heated up the tip of a drill bit, and then once it's hot you can press it in there, give it a turn, and it'll create the perfect size hole for your airline tubing. And you simply, if I can get it lined up here, line it up. And turn it a little bit and help it get all the way in there. And then that is all there is to it. You can adjust your nozzle however you want. You can adjust your media or your sponge, just however you want it to sit. And then you just fill it up with water, hook another airline hose to this, and then this is whenever you want it to drain. Just simply open it up and it'll drain to the level of the airline hosing in here. So that's going to be your water set level, which is another reason for the sponge. It'll hold it kind of off the bottom a little bit so it doesn't drain too much. And then whenever you're done, it'll look just like one of these. So you have the airline tubing coming off that I just have going into a bucket on the ground. And then, so you have the airline tubing straight to a bucket on the ground. And then whenever you drain it, it just drains to the level of the sponge. Now when it's filled up, it'll look a little something like this. You'll just have the sponge fill through the valve and the airline tubing running. I have it just running to a bucket down the bottom. And then when you want it to drain, you simply flip the tab or the handle. When you want it to close, you close it. And then you can use your airlines from your clean freshwater bucket to fill them back up. And it takes about 10 minutes with this system to do a drain and fill. So being able to do multiple at once saves a lot of time for me, and that's really all I'm trying to do here. But hopefully this helps for anybody who's trying to set up a simple, cheap solution and doesn't want to have to go through all the trial and error and the work involved with doing a PVC or a more permanent plumbed solution. So hopefully this helps. If it does, please give me a thumbs up or put a comment, or if you have used something similar, post what you have and let others check it out so that we can help everybody to build what system's best for them.